You got punchy and energetic drumming, fantastic guitar playing, awesome singing, of course, but heartfelt vocals and kind of lyrics as well. Hello there, girls and boys. Welcome back to the show. Today we're going to be analyzing and reacting to one of my favorite bands ever. And this time around we're going to be talking about Whitesnake. Probably because I got inspired to do this video after the announcement by David Coverdale himself that he's finally retiring from rock music as a whole. Which I totally welcome, because that's the way to go. You got to do it with grace when you're at the highest of your career. And I decided to pick a track from his later material. This is coming from Forevermore, and the track in question is Easier Said Than Done, a beautiful ballad that I happen to like quite a lot, and there are many good reasons for you to enjoy it as well. So if you know the song, well, let's listen to it and analyze it together. Or if you haven't listened to this track before, well, there's a good chance for you to get into their music, because it's a great band, believe me. Now, before we go, if this is your first time on the channel, I welcome you, because in here we analyze the music that we love, but from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, but using language that everybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production, songwriting, and of course, music appreciation. With that being said, let's get into it. Here we go. Again. So here we go. Easier Said Than Done by Whitesnake.
Storm anytime you need. Through the long and lonely night, you got me to hold you tight. My love is guaranteed. You're everything I've waited for. Now
Sorry for interrupting, but you know the drill. First and foremost, this ballad is beautiful, don't you think? Has everything that makes Whitesnake music feel and sound the way it does. Why? Because you got punchy and energetic drumming, fantastic guitar playing, awesome singing, of course, but heartfelt vocals and kind of lyrics as well. So this track, it's very much similar to another track from the previous record. If the track in question is You're All I Want, All I Need, from the album Good to Be Bad. And I always looked at this guy as the spiritual successor to that one, because this is not coming from this remastered version. This is actually coming from this guy, Forevermore. Yes, I actually own CDs, but wherever. Like the video, if you happen to still stick to your CDs and owning your own stuff, because I hate this whole concept of streaming services. Why? Because the reason why we're listening to this remastered version is because I simply don't have access to the original recording Forevermore on Apple Music. But besides that, the track is very beautiful sounding, and I happen to be a huge fan of the mixing process for this record, because it has plenty of beautiful things going on that we will be analyzing in a much more deeper fashion later on in this analysis. But first and foremost, I want to point out that the beautiful arrangement of instruments, because while the track was playing, I was trying to draw your attention to the use not only of the electric guitars, but also you saw that they were actually playing some chords on acoustic while the verse was going on. Very clever, because you might be saying, dude, but how can you do that in a live environment? You already got your guitar players busy playing the electric guitar sections. You don't. You simply don't. This is music production. And when you are producing records, you have to do it in the sense of enhancing the emotional impact of the track. Because when you're playing live, such as they used to do back in the day, the music itself speaks by its own, and the performance covers the gaps, or that could be missed by the extra instrumentation used in the recording. Because actually, you add those instruments while producing the record just to try to get as close as possible to the emotional impact that being there in front of the band performing the track is in real life. But very, very crafty, very well done, and beautifully sounding. Also, very much spaced out. Nothing, the mix doesn't sound cluttered, don't you think? It's very open sounding, while still retaining plenty of the punch and energy. Now, of course, let's talk about the vocals. David Coverdale's fantastic singer, one of my favorite singers ever, and a huge inspiration on my own development for my own voice as a singer, and also a huge kind of role model to me in many, many ways. I love his gentlemanly yet kind of almost this close from being inappropriate approach to everything that makes him such a character, right? It's fun. Had the chance to see him perform live, and he's basically the way I describe him. What do you think about that? But it also shows in his vocal style, don't you think? It's very honest. It's very performatic, but while still retaining that authenticity to it. Awesome tone, fantastic timbre, and very much potent sounding voice. One thing that happens with the record, and it's something that I discovered when I listened to this track for the first time on the album, you can hear that there is plenty of distortion on his voice. Distortion sounds like this, first and foremost. Right now, I'm applying a little bit of distortion or saturation, depending on who you ask, to the sound of my vocals. And as you could hear, there was a little bit of an extra fuzziness, extra texture to my voice, because I didn't want to go overboard with the effect, because I tried to get it as close as possible to the sound of his vocals in the record. Why is that important? You'll see once I get into the whole mixing section or mixing analysis of this reaction video, that is used for a very particularly important point, but more on that later. I want you to pay attention to his vocals once I press play once again and try to detect the effect. It's going to be very difficult for you because it's difficult for me. I only notice it when in a moment in which he's actually breathing in, getting ready to sing the next section of the verse. Clever. You'll see why later on. Also, pay attention to the use of effects on his vocals because there is also a little bit of delay, which sounds like this. Delay. And it's an effect that, as you might have guessed, creates replicas of the sound going through and replicates them based on tempo, following the or synchronized to the tempo of the song. And it's very percussive, very much a very quintessential effect in music, and it's very rarely used in the track on the vocals because it's only used in very important sections that allows for the effect to be very much at the forefront of the music. You heard it, so pay attention to it, and also think about the sound of the guitars and how they correlate with the drums because we're going to be discussing them later on. So here we go.
Sometimes I swim against the tide when I know you're by my side. There ain't nothing I can do. Baby, my heart's an open book. Anytime you wanna look, 'cause it's written just for you. Oh, you're everything I've waited for. Now I don't have to look no more. Take me as I am. I'll do the best I can for your love. It's easier said than done. Take me by the hand. Try to understand when I say it's easier said than done.
Sorry, I know, the guitar solo is about to kick in, but let's talk about the mix before we finish off the track because my plan is to let you enjoy the rest of the song with this understanding in your head first. So, as I mentioned before, I ask you to pay attention to the sound of the guitars and the drums in tandem. Why is that? You'll see that the drums have plenty of fuzziness to them as well, particularly on the cymbals, and that's similar to the effect or the sound applied to his vocals, to David's vocals. And it's very similar in texture when it comes to the tone of an electric guitar. all of them are sharing this distortion or saturation, as I mentioned before. And it's very important for the recording because it's allowing the different instruments kind of merge together. That's why I told you that it's gonna be kind of hard for you to detect the sound of the distortion applied to David's vocals because it's so well dialed up that it's only there to let the vocals fit beautifully with the rest of the music. With that in mind, let's take a look at the screen. Over here we got Decibel, and this is the tool that you have been looking at since the beginning of this analysis. And this tool is what allows us to use, through the use of a visual medium, to analyze music, okay? And in this section over here, the first section of our analyzer is the frequency range analyzer. In here, through the use of this white line over here, we will be able to see how loud each of the different frequencies that are part of the frequency range spectrum that we can hear as human beings were at their highest point throughout the performance of a track, okay? We got 20 here, which is the lowest we can hear as human beings, all the way down to 20,000 hertz, the highest we can hear. Under 20, subsonic, supersonic, after 20,000, okay? And here we got the very beautiful sounding and actually quite cool looking, and I know it's kind of geeky for me to say that, but you'll see why. This is a record from the 2010s, early 2010s, if I recall correctly, and it was at the very tail end of what is known as the loudness wars. And if you recall, or do you know, or if you know what that is, well, you know, but if you don't know, no worries, because this is what it means. Back in the 2000s, there was this incredible kind of almost warlike scenario in which everybody producing music was trying to beat each other when it came to releasing the loudest record possible. Why is that? Well, because everybody, was following the trend that was basically speaking, saying that if you make a loud record, chances are that you will sell more pieces of the record. And that had plenty of different problems along the way, or brought many problems along the way. More on that once we hit the next station. But I'm telling you this because this record has everything that was part of those canons or those kind of techniques, but done in a very beautiful and proper way. Let me show you. We got plenty of low end, energetic, but it's not stupidly loud, as some other records we have analyzed in this channel before have been, particularly from this period of time. Also, plenty of of mid-range, which is fantastic because our human hearing is based on the appreciation of this particular section of the spectrum. Here we feel it. That's why you like to feel the bass hitting your chest when you're blasting your favorite track, such as this one. And this area over here, if it's way too high, becomes ear-piercing and kind of annoying and kind of sibilant sounding, and it's not good. But if it's way too removed from the record, it becomes dull sounding. So you can see that we got a good chunk, but it's not annoying. It's actually very detailed and crispy and kind of hi-fi. And then we got a good chunk in contrast of low end, which is punchy, energetic, bombastic, but is not booming and is not overly done. Amazing. And then the mid-range, which is basically where the meat and potatoes of music lies and will be found, is properly projected. That's why I told you the whole thing with distortion, because all of the instruments are very much blending in together through the use of that particular timbre or texture. Also, I didn't mention it before, but the organ is incredible. Love the tone and the use of the organ throughout the song. I happen to be a sucker for that kind of instrumentation in rock music, and it's very well done. Amazing. Now, let's take a look at the second section of the analyzer, which is the dynamic range. This has everything to do with the volume that I mentioned before. This blue blob represents how loud the track has been throughout time. The louder or the higher it goes, the louder the record was at that given point in time. Okay? This is important because we're going to be able to see the correlation between the loudest point in volume with the lowest point in volume throughout time. This matters, and is probably the most important aspect in music, because this is what we call the dynamic range. In music, when something is quieter, it becomes sexier, more introspective, and romantic. Very appropriate for Whitesnake, right? But when something goes louder, it becomes much more energetic, much more punchier, and much more exciting, which is quite appropriate for Whitesnake as well, right? So you can see why it's very important to have this correlation, right? Because the quieter part will allow for the louder part to feel more impactful and meaningful, while going down in volume or intensity will allow for the music to feel more introspective and heartfelt. Let's see how they did it. And luckily for us and for them, they actually didn't go that high in volume in everything. Because during the loudness wars, we also got this stupidity that was cranking up everything so loud that the dynamic range basically disappeared. So looking at you, Metallica, for example. But in here, we got a beautiful representation. The track itself is loud. Why? Because since the beginning is bam. And you can see how loud the first impact is. The bam is just this spike in volume. Why is that like that? I can assure you that when mixing, the mixing engineer pushed the fader, the master fader up, just in that point, just to duck it down, just for it to be the what the hell happened. It's a attention grabbing moment. Clever. And then he took it down just slightly for it to keep the momentum going, but without you realizing that the volume kind of faded out, well, went a little bit down. But then, the first verse, tun, tuk, tun. Here's David singing, and you see how they decrease the volume of the whole track, but not that much, but you still feel how the track becomes very intimate sounding, while still retaining the punchy and energetic drumming, just for it to rise up in intensity and volume, and allowing the delivery of the first chorus to be as punchy and emotional as it is. Fantastic. The reason why they do that, or we do that when mixing music, is to produce those kind of sing-along moments. That's why it happens. That's why you are singing to the whole chorus, because as soon as it kicks in, like, this is the catchy part. I am emotionally invested already on the track. Now I'm following it. Very important. And here's the second section. The same happens. When they reintroduce the melodic elements through the use of the guitars, they talk down the volume a little bit just for it to go down even more for the second verse. And see how, since this is a little bit longer, the verse itself starts to go a little by little to a much more louder territory for it to deliver a much more emotional load on us through the use of the chorus once again. This is fantastic songwriting skills and production skills. It shows that this is clearly the result of somebody who is very, very experienced and a master of the craft, if you would like to use that terminology. Fantastic, beautiful done. Now let's listen to the final section, because this is basically the ending of the track. I'm gonna let the song do its thing, but I want you to pay attention to everything I mentioned already, so you can actually now apply this knowledge to the song that we're enjoying together. And then we're gonna be sharing our thoughts as final thoughts, okay? So here we go.
You're everything
What a beautiful ending, right? So cinematic, so dramatic, so beautiful and romantic sounding. They added a little bit of an string arrangement at the end that was very subtle, very well done, in great taste. And especially speaking, I love the use of the guitars at the end. So melodic. And of course, the guitar solo was excellent. Short, bad, to the point, and using a very, very much a fantastic tone. These guys, please remind me who is part of the band at this point, because if I remember, it's Jeff and Doc, right? But I might be incorrect, Doc. So please let me know. But besides that, the track finishes in such a beautiful way that truly gives you kind of this melancholic vibe to it, don't you think? It's like a farewell to a certain degree. And look, maybe it's because the recent announcement of David Coverdale finally retiring from rock music as a whole, professionally speaking, it kind of gets me into this kind of momentum, or this kind of momentum, this kind of moment in which I feel as someone who has him in such a high pedestal when it comes to the level of respect I have for him as a musician and as a human being as well. I look up to him, and I think of him as being a good role model in general. Him announcing his actual retirement is refreshing because it makes me see how much or increases my respect for him, because he knows that his time is done. Not necessarily speaking that he's basically on his way out of this realm, more in the sense of him realizing that it's time to stop. And it's something that every single one of us have to do. And he's doing it with such grace at a very good, beautiful moment in his life. And the announcement is kind of, how can I put it? Inspiring. Because that's the way I would like to go as well when I reach that point in my life. As someone who is confident and happy with everything he did throughout his life, and still being able to enjoy whatever is left of it. That's inspiring and beautiful, and it's something that every single one of us should aspire to get in our lifetime, don't you think? This track is very much the result of plenty of years of experience producing music. Of course, I'm talking about him and the band, of course. And it shows. It's a beautiful arrangement, beautifully produced. The sound is fantastic. The mix is excellent. And I totally recommend you to get into their music, because most of the people that I have met, whenever it comes to Whitesnake, they always think of them as just being one of those hair metal bands from the 80s, but they're clearly not. They're a fantastic hard rock band. It's one of my favorite bands ever, by the way. Well, I think it shows. And this record, being the last one they produced, from what I know of, as a full record, of course, it's fantastic. The entire album is excellent. Totally recommended. That's why I got it. And it has plenty of bangers. I was thinking on analyzing a different track, which is Love Will Set You Free, which was the actual single for this record, the first one at least. But the thing is that I couldn't find the version that is inside of this record, because the one that is available to me on Apple Music is a remix, which has a different introduction and different elements to the song that, being very frank, I prefer the original. Maybe because it's the one that's stuck in my head. But if you want me to analyze to that or react to that one, I will gladly do it, and I will find a way to get this out of my CD and put it inside of my computer, so we can analyze it together. Okay? So with that being said, thank you for joining, thank you for watching, and please, if you happen to be a Whitesnake fan, please let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you want me to analyze more of their music, please tell me to do it, because I would more than gladly do it, because they're awesome, fantastic band, and I would love more people to appreciate them to learn more about their music other than just Is This Love and Here We Go Again, because they have way more badass music to offer other than those tracks. And no, don't get me wrong, they're not bad tracks by any means, but if you know, you know, they got stuff like this. Okay, so with that being said, thanks for joining, thanks for watching, and if you like to support this channel, please leave a like as well, and subscribe if you want to see more commentary like this further down the line. So with that being said, the only thing left to be reminded is that you should never let anybody tell you what to dream about, and remember that I will see you when I see you.